Up All Night, Fly to the Angels, Mad About You, The Wildlife, and on and on. The band Slaughter had iconic songs in the early 90s and have continued to make music, go out and tour ever since. Lead singer Mark Slaughter has a terrific new album. It's called Halfway There. It's a solo album. And in a moment, you're going to hear a great song called Hey You. I'm Christian Bladt. This is AfterBuzz TV's The Concert Experience with special guest Mark Slaughter. Let's go.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Oh, that's right. You hear it right there. Hey You, the first track from Halfway There, the new album by Mark Slaughter. I believe his second solo album will be available May 26th. Mark, thank you so much for making some time to join us here on the concert experience here on AfterBuzz TV. We really appreciate it. I think Mark's just rocking out, enjoying the song here, which is great, but I believe the people watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see him in a minute. But Mark, you hear me okay?
Sure can.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And by the way, if people want to get in touch with you, it's always important to get all the particulars out there. MarkSlaughter.com, and of course, at MarkSlaughter33 on Twitter, Instagram, Mark Slaughter Official. Anyway, Mark, again, thanks so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So I really like the new album, and I was lucky enough to get a chance to listen to the whole thing this afternoon. Before we talk about it, I'm going to just take a quick minute and tell you a little bit about my background. And when I first was really exposed to the band Slaughter, Slaughter was actually the third band I ever saw perform live. So my first concert, Alice Cooper at the Ritz in New York City, March 1990. And there was an opening band called The Front. But then my second concert, Kiss on the Hot in the Shade Tour, 1990. And you guys were the opening act. And our YouTube audience can see I actually have a very well-worn ticket from June 17th, 1990, where I saw Slaughter open for Kiss at the Orange County Fairgrounds. And, you know, in those days, you didn't always head in to see the opening band, but I had heard Up All Night, and I was like, I need to see this band. And I was just blown away. And, you know, Kiss put on a great show that night. People are a little hard on them for that period of their career, Hot in the Shade in particular, but they put on a great show. But Slaughter was so good that we were still talking about you guys afterwards. So, of course, it being 1990, I ran out and bought the cassette the next day, and I definitely wore it out. So that's kind of, you know, when I first was really experiencing the band. And so it's been a while, and I'm very excited to get a chance to talk to you. The reason I bring this up is because this show is the concert experience, Mark. So I'm kind of wondering, what was, if not your first, but one of the first concerts that you went to that was really kind of inspirational to you, like, I need to do that? Or did it happen even before you ever went to a concert?
Well, I think I was already into music as a very young child. I loved music. I loved listening to records. In fact, that's one of my behavior things that my parents, if I behaved well, I get a 45 at the end of the week. So that was kind of one of the things that I've always loved and behaved well for, and behaved bad too. But the truth of the matter is you know, I've always loved music. It's always been a part of my life, and you know, look, I've been able to do this for a long time. It's been great. But my first concert experience was Heart, and also Kenny Loggins were my first two concerts. But
I thought for a second you were going to say Heart and Kenny Loggins played on the same bill, which would have been an interesting combination.
No, they didn't. But you know, one thing I really thought on both acts, I was just like amazed at both vocally about how incredible you know, Ann was first and foremost.
Sure.
And Kenny Loggins was amazing too. I mean, I know he's not in the metal wheelhouse of things, but I mean, he was an incredible singer, and again, as an entertainer. The first time I really just said, oh my God, that's what I want to do, was Sammy Hagar when he was opening for Boston.
And this was solo Sammy Hagar, not with Montrose anymore. This is when he was out, like Can't Drive 55.
Yeah, he was on his own. He was on his own. Boston was on the Don't Look Back tour, and he was opening. Gary Peel was playing guitar with him at the time, and that was just one of those things. I just thought, man, that's so cool. The guy plays guitar and he sings and he entertains and he got the crowd going. And I think that's one of the things that I always looked at as a entertainer after seeing that concert is I thought that was really cool how he brought the crowd into into his world as opposed to like I'm here and you're there. And he did that again. Sammy Hagar is a totally different thing than when he was with Van Halen years later. But he was always that constant front man that I thought he was great. After that, later I saw Van Halen, I saw Rush. You know, I was a big concert goer, and that was in Las Vegas, Nevada, at the Latin Theater for Performing Arts. And I ended up graduating on that stage. And then when we came back to Vegas for the first time, I was able to play on that stage. So it was pretty amazing.
Did you play on that stage as Slaughter, or was that Vinnie Vincent Invasion, or?
Played it with Slaughter.
Oh, great.
Vinnie Vincent, we never made it through there. We were, you know, I was on tour with Vinnie Vincent Invasion was with Alice Cooper. That was in 1986. And then I was on tour with Iron Maiden. And then we came back and started working on the All Systems Go record.
One of the most interesting things that I've heard you talk about in other interviews is that, you know, you were primarily a guitar player and you just sort of ended up being the singer because I guess it was bands when you were starting out, nobody else wanted to sing, so you did both. But then when it came to the Vinnie Vincent Invasion, obviously Vinnie's going to be there to play the guitar, and you just stopped playing guitar so that you could go out there and be a frontman. Was it
Right.
difficult to kind of only do that, or did it free you up in any way?
I think in the beginning I was a little nervous about it because, you know, it's one thing fronting a band or, you know, doing a couple songs without the guitar, but, you know, this is baptism by fire. I was teaching about 279 lessons per month at Vesely Music when they were over there. And then all of a sudden I'm a frontman opening up for Alice Cooper, completely glammed out with my hair, you know, way up high, and
Yeah.
we're all make-upped out in the glam era. And it was, you know, it was pretty intense. It was a very intense thing, but, you know, I think that I got the hang of it. I think that from all the concerts and the things that influenced me in the early years, I think that's part of you know, what I was able to pull from, you know.
When it came to actual frontmen, was there someone that, you know, and let's not be sexist about it. It could be, you know, one of the ladies in Heart. It could be a front person. But was there someone that you're like, okay, when I'm out here doing this, I want to try and have the connection that, whether it be Paul Stanley, Sammy Hagar, was there someone in particular that you felt like, apart from guitar playing, you're like, I want to emulate this front person?
I think it was the sum of it all. I don't think that I still wanted to be my own person, but, you know, you can always go back to, you know, each one of those, you know, whether even Ann, that she was amazing, man. She's a belter. She's belted her whole lifetime. Now, I don't care if she's a girl. She can stand up to any guy all day long. She was amazing. And Sammy Hagar was, you know, I think that what I liked about him is it was that party, you know, and that Van Halen with David Lee Roth, he is the epitome to a front man to me. You know, him and Steven Tyler, if you opened up the definition of a front man, I think that those two guys are, you know, their pictures are right there in the encyclopedia as front men. You know, I felt I was always like the guy next door was kind of my thing. And you know, I just kind of wanted to go up and do my thing and bring the audience into it. And when we were out with Kiss, they would kind of get ticked off because we'd have 300, 400 people back in the backstage area, and, you know, it got a little out of hand. But we enjoyed that whole kind of bringing the crowd into our world. And Slaughter was a people's band from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think people, I mean, they really had a great connection. You know, like 2 nights later, I saw the Black Crowes open for Aerosmith at the same venue in upstate New York where I grew up. And, you know, Black Crowes went on to have great success, but don't think I've ever seen a band have a worse connection than the Black Crowes on that first tour. And I just seen you guys, and I was like, oh, okay, so I guess this is what it's like with opening bands, that people basically boo you off the stage and they want to see Aerosmith. But, I mean, people loved you guys. So I think, like you said, being the band of the people goes a long way. As you go throughout your career, obviously you get to work with so many great people. You get to tour with them. Is there someone that kind of stands out that you had a moment where you're like, I can't believe I'm working with so and so on whatever project it was,
I
or
mean,
touring?
from the very beginning, when I did my first show with Vinnie Vincent, when I was with Alice Cooper, Iron Maiden, Kiss, Ozzy Osbourne. You know, we toured with Damn Yankees, we toured with Poison, we toured. I mean, you know, we toured with Whitesnake. You know, the list goes on.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like those things you go, man, that's pretty cool, because you
Yeah.
know you don't think about it when you're in it, but the music fan in you every once in a while, like when you know Ozzy would pull over and say, "Hey man, how was the monitors yesterday? You know, how was that?" And you just go, "Wow, it was Ozzy." You know,
Yeah.
you don't think about it when you're doing it, but he's the guy I listened to with all the Sabbath records when I was a kid in my headphones. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's part of the thing to me, that when I ended up on stage with these people, it's not like one of those, you know, oh my God, freak out moments. You just go, this is really, you know, I'm living my dream. This is awesome.
Yeah, and you know, you talked about Baptism by Fire with Vinnie Vincent Invasion. Now, the first actual Slaughter show was the opening night of the Kiss Hot in the Shade tour. So, I mean, obviously you guys had known each other, you'd played together with Vinnie, but this was the first time where this was this band. But were there any extra, I don't know, any extra butterflies or anything because you're taking the stage as Slaughter without, you know, the Vinnie's brand, I guess, attached to it?
That was, you know, doing the first show with Slaughter was different because we never we rehearsed, but we never played live. We never played like a club. You know, we did obviously in our individual bands when we were younger, but the first show we ever played, literally, we never even went in front of people. Our first show was in front of Kiss. And when we came off the stage at that show, John Sykes, our president of the record label, and Joe Keener, who's the CEO, were in our dressing room and surprised us with gold records at that show. So it was like one of those shows that you go, not only did I get a chance to play with one of the legendary bands of all time, but there was a gold record waiting in my dressing room when I played my first show. This is going to be kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I was like, this, I think something's happening here, guys, you know, pinch me, but I think something's happening. And that's kind of,
yeah, I don't know any other artist who's going to have that story. Oh yeah, our first show we got a gold record. So I mean, that's got to be tremendous success. That has to feel great, and you know, to really kind of get that leg up. And also, I mean, obviously the band Slaughter came along at exactly the right time for the sound that you guys had already developed. And I mean, those songs were on the radio and on MTV when MTV was actually something that stood for music television. And you know, and it's funny because just it was probably the perfect time for that. And going out on that Kiss tour, I'm sure, was, you know, great exposure for a band that was already getting decent exposure, you know. So at what point do you go on the first solo tour, you know, first headline tour?
As far as Slaughter goes,
Yeah.
we did headline shows kind of off during that tour. If we had a day off, we would go off and do shows. We did like a New Year's show here or there. I mean, as far as a headline tour, you know, we really didn't ever just do a headline thing. I think we stayed in the opening position for a lot of bands that was in the larger arenas and sheds, and we stayed in that until it's pretty much about 95. You know, it started to change, and we went into clubs, and you know, the whole climate of music had changed for all the bands. And to us, we just kept going. I mean, we kept playing, and as Dana states, it was a very difficult time for the band because, you know, it wasn't pretty. It was some pretty rough venues and a lot of hard times. But I think that if you're an artist, you still make your art, you still take it to people. And that's kind of where our heads were at.
Yeah, and speaking of art, I want to talk to you about the new album in a second, but I've also heard you speak in the past. You have almost like a Zen-like approach to this notion that, you know, these hard rock bands of the early 90s were kind of pretty quickly edged out by the, the grunge movement, the Nirvanas, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, etc. And it doesn't seem like you really hold a grudge. I've heard other people say that, oh, those crappy bands, in the lumberjack shirts came along and kind of edged it out.
Look,
but you seem pretty
they
cool
were
about it.
Crappy.
Yeah.
That's wrong to say that any of those bands. Soundgarden was amazing, all that stuff. There were some good bands, but the problem is with the recording industry is as soon as one band has success, they go and they sign 1 million of those bands, and they inevitably kill that type of music, because then they start signing everything that's like it instead of something that's original. It's the same thing with the bands. When we were signed, we were lucky enough to be able to keep the creative control. Dana and I were able to produce those records and record all that stuff. And, at the end of the day, with all that, we were the writers, we were the producers, and we're still the performers of that music to this day. And we're the only band from our genre that can say that all the way through in our genre. And, the other bands that came up after us, again, the record labels would sign bands. Even in those years, they'd sign a band because they liked them, and then they'd hire an outside writer, they'd hire a producer, they'd have this guy play on it, and inevitably they'd change exactly what they bought off in the band when they signed them and change them into something else that was a homogenized thing. So, I think that's what the problem was with the industry, and it became more about whatever they could sell instead of the honesty of those bands. Again, Soundgarden was honest. Nirvana, if you love them or hate them, they were honest. I think it was, again, I have no problems with Nirvana. I thought the songs were great.
Yeah, and I think that obviously that's really the key, and that's what it comes down to. And yeah, I think obviously there's those stories through the music industry throughout the decades of, okay, now you need to be the next so-and-so. And as soon as your starting point is be the next, whether it's be the next Slaughter, the next Poison, be the next Nirvana, as soon as you're trying to be the next anything, you're not really going to be anything that's going to connect well. Maybe short term, you might get a couple songs on the radio, but, it doesn't seem to be the smart approach, really.
No, I think, again, honest, it has to be honest. I think the music has to be not put on and not like, hey, I think I can make a quick buck or a money grab on this by doing this. It has to be honest, and it has to be along with what the artist represents, Yeah, I understand some artists wanting to go do this style or that style, but I mean, the integrity of a record ultimately has to be what that artist represents.
Right, absolutely. And as we speak about albums that are, of course, honest and representative of the person, it's a great transition to Mark Slaughter's Halfway There, which will be available May 26th. And more information, markslaughter.com. And by the way, the band Slaughter has a separate website, slaughterusa.com. But I really like the new album. Like I said in the intro, I got to hear it this afternoon. And I just think that, it was great. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how your previous album, which I also liked, Reflections in a Rearview Mirror, you kind of put that out yourself. What's the difference with this album and how it's out there?
Well, first and foremost, it's with Dave Ellison's label. I've known Dave a lifetime, and
Dave from Megadeth.
Dave Ellison from Megadeth.
And obviously, I would assume you've known him probably for 25, 30 years, maybe. Yeah,
good 30 years exactly. And I think the key is with that is that you get in this industry at this point, and it becomes about dealing with people who you want to deal with. Both Dave and Tom, over at the label, knows my vision. They know what I want to do with the record. And I think that they wanted to try to increase this to the masses, so to speak, to take it to radio, to take it to those other markets and those other things that, quite honestly, it's very difficult for a one-person show to be the writer, the producer, the engineer, the guitar player, bass player, all the way down the line. And by the way, you're also the radio promotion, this and this and this. It comes a point where you have to say, listen, I need somebody else to do something. I can't be the mayor and the police chief at the same time. If we're going to run this town properly, let's get the right people and the people that I know that can get the job done. And that's ultimately what what's going on right now, and that's what people are seeing. It's like, wow, there's some momentum going on this record. The record was done right, and the people who are surrounding it are doing it right.
Right. And as I mentioned, you do still go out and perform with the guys in Slaughter, but they basically have a day job where they're Vince Neil's band. So
Right.
that probably had, I'm going to guess, that had a lot to do with you deciding the last couple of years that you were going to make solo records instead of new Slaughter records.
It is that, and to be honest with you, even in the Slaughter frontier, nobody's really jumping up and knocking my door down to do records. And as you see in my, here in my studio, I mean, there's a guitar in my hand, my stuff's ready, it's rolling, and I'm writing and I'm making music, nonstop. That's what I do. And I think that as an artist, you continuously make art. So, it's nothing against the band Slaughter. This is just me working and doing things. When they're busy, I'm busy too.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you're keeping busy and obviously putting out new music, because we've heard plenty of people say, most loudly, Gene Simmons saying that I don't see the point in recording new music at this point. And
well,
I mean,
and the reason why, and understand the reason why Gene's saying that is because monetarily, it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense to make a record as far as, a money grab situation. It's not important. But as an artist, if you're starting out, which is how I look at it, if you're starting out as an artist, or even if you've been there a lifetime like Tony Bennett, you literally still make art. And there's no point where you should stop making art just because you're not going to make money at it. I think that you have to maintain that this is what I do. When Kat Von D's not doing tattoos, she's drawing outside the tattoo shop because she's an artist. And that's really where I'm at with all this, is just continuously making art. And that's really where my mindset is on all this.
yeah, and I completely agree. And I think the fact that, once you put it out there, you don't really have any control as to, I mean, obviously you can do things like this and promote it and make sure people are aware of it. But if people buy it, they don't buy it, you still got the chance to express yourself. And because I know we got started late and I know you only have a few minutes, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the tracks. When we started, we heard a little bit of Hey You, which I think is great,
Right.
because it just literally grabs you while you're listening to it. And I was, 10, 15 seconds in, I'm like, all right, this is kind of how I felt putting on that Slaughter cassette that I mentioned that I wore out. And, I had it on in the car, and I'm like, this is exactly what I want. So I was very excited that's kind of, that's a great song to put out there, because it's like I was going to say it's a punch in the face, which sounds bad, but it's like a good punch in the face,
Well, I think it's a punch in the face of like, do you remember this?
Yes.
It's not too far away from where I came from. It's just got a little bit more teeth to it. And, at the end of the day, with the whole record, there's some really heavy stuff on it, but it's songs. And it's songs that relate to, not only the experiences that I've gone through in my life thus far, but a lot of people have talked to me about their stories and what they've been through. And, again, I'm a storyteller. So there's a lot of stories, and there's a lot of heart, and there's a lot of, there's a lot of joy, and there's a lot of pain that we all go through in this. And that's what life is about, and that's what music is about.
Yeah, and you referenced that there's some really heavy songs on the record, and the song Devoted, I was just really impressed. I'm like, oh, okay, that's where we are. We're going to just not slow it down, the next song. It actually just amped it up even more, and I was like, wow, this is a really heavy song, and I don't mean this as an insult. It's heavier than I expected I was going to get from this record, and in a completely good way, I was surprised.
Well, good. Well, I mean, that's kind of what I wanted, but it wasn't something I said, okay, now I'm going to write this. It's just, this is the mood of where I came from on this record. And again, it was written for vinyl. This record was made for vinyl. I really wanted to take not only the listener, but in my own head, if I was listening to, a Black Sabbath record or Heart or, Led Zeppelin or whatever it is, when you put the headphones on, you get lost in that music as you're falling asleep, and that's really what I tried to do, is make it to where there's just this journey that the music takes you on. And that's ultimately what I think is achieved on this record. but at the same time, it's not running away from where I came from.
Right. And I would say that the title track, Halfway There, I mean, just listening to it, it seems like it's a very personal song. And I think that's exactly what you were talking about in terms of just expressing yourself and, you know, making art and hoping that people connect with it. You know, you're singing about, it seems like you're talking about, if I remember correctly, and I'm going to admit I only heard it once this afternoon because I didn't get it until today, but, you know, you were talking about your mom in it, and it was funny because I identified with that because I talked about that Alice Cooper concert I went to. The person who took me to that was my mom, who made a fake ID that said I was 16 when I was only 14. So I was just, you know, it definitely resounded with me in that way.
Right, right. Well, I think that, you know, again, you know, your family is your environment and where you came from. And, you know, this whole song of Halfway There is really about your relationship with your family. And as you grow older and when you have kids and when you're dead and gone. And this whole song is not necessarily cats in the cradle mindset.
We have
You know, the wheel of life is taking and I'm halfway through this.
Ooh. I think that's your phone probably telling you about the other call you have, which
Somebody's trying to phone me in the middle of it all.
yeah, but that's all right. We had
Sorry.
a little technical glitch, but we'll definitely let you go in a few minutes. Now, do you have any plans to do any solo performances, whether it's not a tour or anything, but do you plan to do this material live, or is it really just about doing the Slaughter tour? Is that the only thing that's coming up?
You know, I'm going to continue doing Slaughter shows. Obviously, it's what that's what I have known and loved, and I'm going to continue to do that. But I'm also going to take this music forward and take it out there. I've got a great cast of characters that I'm going to be, you know, doing this with. Mike Himmel on guitar, and there's Jamie Millard, also known as the Pink Bassman, and also Bobby Rock is on one show, and Ken Mary is going to be playing drums on another show. So it's kind of like this cast of characters of people that I know and ultimately are friends of mine that are really, really great players. And I think that we'll be able to bring something forward that people are kind of looking for.
Well, I think it's great that, you know, that you'll be able to actually share the music with people, and obviously markslaughter.com. People can find out about the album and any dates. You know, again, we got started late, so I know we need to let you go. In our last minute or so, it's a story I know you've told before, but I just really wanted to share with the audience. When you first started on the tour with Kiss, I know that Gene Simmons approached you right away about Vinnie Vincent, and just the way I've heard you tell it before, I just think it would kind of be a fun way to kind of go out on this conversation.
Oh, you mean like we're not going to talk about Vinnie Vincent. We're not going to ever discuss him out here at all. We're not going to reference him in any way. And we're just going to let that go. It's a part of our life that's done. And I said, great, Gene. Okay. And then a little later, so when you worked with Vinnie Vincent, let me ask you something.
Yeah. And I don't know. I am a huge fan of Gene Simmons' impressions. And it seems like people who get the chance to be around him, you can't help but take it on, because I would say in terms of everybody in rock and roll, he's one of the most larger than life characters. You know, him and Ted Nugent, of course, come to mind as just sort of the most unique people out there.
Yeah. All of who I've actually, you know, had the joy of touring with, even Uncle Ted. I've had some good times with Ted. One time, when, you know, we'll end it with this. We were ending a tour actually in Las Vegas, and I called a buddy of mine, and I rented a panda suit, and I put this panda suit on, and you know, I'm kind of a jokester, a comedian, so to speak. Put my pass on over the panda suit, walked backstage, knocked on Ted Nugent's door, and Ted, you know, he opens the door and he looks at me like, "Oh man," and I said, "Hello, Ted, give me a hug." I took the head of the panda off, and he goes, "Mark Slaughter, you crazy son of a bitch! I thought you were one of those PETA fuckers, and I was gonna have to shoot you."
That's what I was gonna say. You're lucky he didn't reach for his bow and arrow as soon as he saw.
Let me tell you something. That guy's a marshal, and he does carry. But Look, that's the joy of it all. You get to know people's, personalities and stuff, and you got a kick out of it, and so did I. And we're all lucky to laugh through life and get a chance to experience all this stuff. So it's good times.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. Well, and again, the album Halfway There, also a great time to listen to. I hope people go out and get it. And however you consume music these days, May 26th is when it's available, markslaughter.com. And as I mentioned, at markslaughter33 on Twitter and at markslaughterofficial on Instagram. Mark, I really appreciate you taking the time. It was a great treat to get a chance to talk to you, even if it was just for a little bit about the new record.
Thank you. And glad that you caught me in the early years. And come on out. We're still doing it. We're still rocking it. And we're still shaving the heads of all of those in the front with some loud music. I mean, if it's too loud, you're too old. So come on out and get you some.
Yeah, I've got too many gray hairs. So you know what? Yeah, let's have you shave it a little bit. I appreciate that. Thanks so much, Mark. And thanks so much to everybody who joined us. That's Mark Slaughter. As I said, the new album Halfway There will be available May 26th. More information, markslaughter.com. And as we go out, Steve in the booth, if you just play a little bit more Hey You so that people can hear a bit of it. And we'll say thanks to everybody who joined us. We really didn't have time to get to the people that were in the chat, but I really appreciate everybody that was there on YouTube joining in with us. Thanks so much. And we will see you next time on The Concert Experience. You can follow me on Twitter at Christian DMZ, and I have a personal podcast called The Blackcast, BLADTCAST. Thanks so much, and let's enjoy a little bit more Hey You.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.